Good day, dear students. I am again with you. Today we are going to talk about untranslatable words in translation. Look at the picture. This is translator, and he's lost in translation because he comes across with untranslatable words. As you know, untranslatable words may be caused by the different culture, by different history that the language the speakers come across with during their life. Untranslatability is the property of text or speech for which no equivalent can be found when translated into another language. The text that is considered to be untranslatable is considered the lacuna or lexical gap. Especially this kind of words, this kind of context have no equivalent in the target language. When we speak about untranslatability, sometimes understanding of the nature of the language and translation is impossible. Untranslatability sometimes may cause difficult problem in the process of translation. Some languages may have some kind of natural or just linguistic words that belong only to the culture of that native speakers. It means the translator's greatest nightmare and the scholar's chief interest is usually seen as existing in two forms. Especially, they have no corresponding words, tenses, phonetic or grammatical entities that occur in the source language. The target language and its culture lack of relevant situational feature for the source language text. So, it happens only in this language. Any kind of event happens only in one culture that will not exist in the second culture, will cause untranslatability of some kind of phrases. So here, translator may come across with difficult situation. Translator can resort to a number of translation procedures to compensate for a lexical gap. Some people say text that is untranslatable because it has its meaning and letter cannot be disassociated. So they say any kind of untranslatable words cannot be associated in the target language. Sometimes they have no meaning. And they say there is nothing that cannot be made to make sense. They say that with untranslatable words they cannot do anything because they make no sense in the target language. This is one point of view of scholars and scientists who think that this kind of untranslatable words will not have a sense in the target language. Sometimes they say the kind that creates and makes everything out of nothing. That means translator should create something from nothing. Many linguists maintain that any given culture can only be fully understood in its own particular language. Any kind of literature, movie, humor can be understood by his or its own native speakers in their particular language, and that's why this kind of situation may cause difficulty in translation, as each nature of the language belongs to that culture of native speakers. The words are the human framework for expression, but despite our best efforts, there are some phrases in other languages that just don't translate, cannot be translated into English, or vice versa. These untranslatable words are nothing new to experienced translators who know the vagaries of human nature. They say, for example, writings of Pushkin can only be truly understood and appreciated when it is read in his mother tongue, in the Russian language. They say Umar Khayyam's books or any kind of writings can be understood very well in the Persian language version. So, when you read something in original language, it is clearly understood in the original language, as the translator comes across with difficulties and may sometimes transfer the meaning in another way. So, what happens when translator encounter untranslatable phrases that he may come across with? Sometimes, orderly attempt at technical accuracy does not always convey the correct meaning of every language. They are called nonsensical, sometimes nonsensical. So, sometimes they may come across with difficulties. There is no adequate equivalent to this kind of words. So, what are some examples for translatable words or phrases? What kind of words can be? Let's think carefully about this kind of type of words. For example, most English speakers are familiar with the phrase bread and butter, and the two go together and are considered very basics of food. In fact, we use phrase as slang to refer that to earn money. However, also Italian has a word for butter, burro. It's not understood the same as English butter. It is unsalted, used for cooking, and never spread on bread or any kind of things. Therefore, English concept bread and butter as a basic food sample and slang usage would be completely incomprehensible in Italian language. So, butter and bread cannot be translated into another language, into Italian language, we mean. How do untranslatable words occur? We have just told about different cultures, different history, different language, different art, of course, will affect the language development. How do translators handle untranslatable words? Let's talk about it. So, what kind of ways do they advise us? So, how translators interpret words between languages without becoming hopelessly lost? They are lost, sometimes very lost. Sometimes they deny, they leave untranslatable words. But don't forget, this is a same mistake of translators. The first thing that they choose adaptation or word creation while translating untranslatable words. Let's talk about first what is adaptation and what is creation. Adaptation. Adapt. So what does the word adapt mean? Adapted means just to get used to some kind of situation. Sometimes untranslatable words should be adapted to the second language, to the target language. You can see on the screen, for example. Cultural adaptation is the art of making the translated text tailored for a particular culture, demographic, market, political system, and community as a whole. For example, New York Times. When translating, we should mention what is it. In Russian, it can be Gazeta New York Times. So here, the listener will understand in the target language what is New York Times. Or Thanksgiving Day. When we speak about Thanksgiving Day, if we translate even word for word, the person will not understand what is it. When we speak about traditional holiday or Thanksgiving Day, if we add something, if we adapt the word into the target language, it will be clear for the listeners. Sometimes they change it as a day of gratitude. When we speak about word creation in the target language, we may think about borrowings. For example, when we speak about creation, there is no word in translation. For example, the word Halloween. How can we translate into Uzbek or into Russian? So we don't have translation of the word. So we say Halloween in Uzbek language and in Russian language, but everybody understands the meaning of that word. It is called borrowing. Borrowing is taking over words from another language. English borrows from other languages can be sofa, relic, croissant from French languages, and so on. So they also borrow from different English words. When we speak about Banya, Thanksgiving Day, bullfighting, especially they are considered just untranslatable words. And here the translator should adopt or should choose a creation in these examples. For Banya. Banya especially exists only in Russian culture when we speak about in Uzbek hammam banya. We can have equivalent, but while translated into English, the translator should give some kind of hint. What is banya? So, how to solve the untranslatability? They advise us to choose adaptation, borrowing, calque, compensation, paraphrasing of translator's notes while translating untranslatable words. Adaptation, that means maslashu. Borrowing, you take the same word in the target language, and so on. So thank you very much for being with me. That is all for today. See you next time.